joined by my colleagues, Paul Krikorian, and our newest member, Marquise Harris-Dawson. We expect to be joined by one or two others soon. Have an action-packed agenda for us today. And we're going to start off with some public comments. So, Wayne Spencer, Herman, and Brian Barajas. In that order, please step forward.
Mr. Chair, how much time?
1 minute. 1 minute, please.
It says 2 minutes.
Oh, no, it says 1
It
minute.
says 1 now. Whose time is running, man? Well, fuck it, I'll use it. Did you know that Hitler's murderous actions left his mark in one way or another on everyone who lived in the early days? Just like today, our city council brought many bad decisions against the homeless people of America, mainly Black Lives Matter. Hey, Mr. Dawson, thank you for filming me. But what sort of man could plan and carry out such malicious schemes to humanity? The budget man, the dumbass goat man who can't flip a burger without cheese in it to feed the homeless people.
Mr. Chair,
And
if
since
it's not on,
general
All right,
public
you're not on
I
the
am
subject.
speaking about what is deadly ventures and why did no one try to stop them until it was almost too late. Humanity dies. Paul
Thank you.
Krikorian.
Thank you for your comments. Next.
Yes, special guest today, Jan Barry, and that she's formerly running the former assets of the CRA. And we have several items here, including a new scheme under Proposition 218 by the chair and also co-sponsored by Paul Krikorian. And we have to remember to stop raising taxes on the middle class. So we're all just animals. People are animals. And you can be a dog, you can be a cat, you can even be a goat, like CD2. So vote no on further taxes. You've already killed the middle class. Now, the only thing left is the minor middle class and the ghetto.
All right, thank you. Brian?
Yeah. So let me just say that as you proceed with your activities here, I know that there's some activities that you are looking forward to utilizing at your disposal. What I would emphasize is if you want the revenue to increase, connect what you're going to do with project developments in water projects, energy projects, and any type of resource that you can utilize that would increase the output of productivity, but in terms of energy and water. And so this will give you a revenue source in years ahead. So please delegate yourselves thoroughly. And I don't have to say this, but for the audience, I think it's important that people understand that we are in a severe crisis.
Okay. As we move forward with the agenda, my intent is to take up items 2, 3, 6, and 7 on consent. 2, 3, 6, 7. I understand we do have cards.
yes, sir, you have cards on those.
Okay. Let's take the cards. Mr. Herman, Mr. Barajas, and Wayne. This is 1 minute.
2, 3, 6, and 7.
2 minutes. All right, 2 minutes.
You want to go ahead? That's fine.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go ahead, sure. Can you, are we speaking on all the items that
Yes.
we,
Yes.
No, sir. This time is only for items 2, 3, 6, and 7.
Okay.
All the items on consent.
Okay, so I'll stick with item 2. I think the only point that I will make is bonds, fine. Just be careful. If this bond issuing matter, make sure that you do not get into agreements that can actually destroy your district. I know that that's been happening, but please, again, be careful with these agreements. You do not want to be swindled, and you do not want to subjugate your population to these disastrous policies.
You have 1 minute left.
Thank you. Next.
Yes, thank you so much for giving me such an enormous amount of time to cover all of these issues. 30 seconds apiece. I mean, it's just incredible. I've never been given so much time to speak, and I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
So, anyway, continuing the sham known as committee meetings, item 2, I don't know what the hell it is, so vote no on that. Now we get to item 3, and it's nobody cares. Lamart Park, nobody cares about it. Now we get to item 5, item 6, item 7, and I see that we've got something that you want to target local businesses.
Yeah, we're asking you to limit your comments to items 2, 3, 6, and 7.
Oh, okay, so we're going to do things like a baby. Okay. The city clerk on item 7, the Chatsworth Business Improvement District reconfirmation procedure. What is it? Nobody knows what it is, but it's in CD 12. That's Mitchell Englander's district, and you want to vote no on Mitchell Englander for supervisor because of things like this. The little businesses are out there digging and scratching their way to the top, just barely almost making it to the top, and then the LA City Council shoves a fucking knife right in their back, and they're back down in the ghetto, bankrupt like my daddy. See, that's what happens. Daddy went bankrupt 3 times. And then, finally, he learned how business really works. You take a shovel to the back of the head of the guy that's your competitor. And that's what you're doing in the Chatsworth Business Improvement District. You're taking a shovel to the heads of people who don't dictate and control campaign donations. Vote no. Please, Mary, vote no.
All right, thank you for those comments. That concludes our public
I'm
comment.
still up, the last person. You called 3 people. Don't you fucking remember? Come on, senile,
Please.
CRLA.
Let's reset the time and stay on subject, please. Just stay on the subject.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
if I may, just
Joe?
as a point of order, Mr.
Joe?
Chairman, whenever the speaker argues with the chair, it is inherently disruptive of this meeting. He can sit there and speak. He cannot argue with the chair. If he takes issue with something that you're saying, then he has remedies for that. But sitting here and arguing with you is inherently disruptive of the meeting.
I agree.
Okay, so I'm on CD 15 acting like a little kid, talking about the Watt Civic Center with CD 15 Joe Blow, which I will pass up. Screw Joe Blow. And then I'm going into item number 7, my number 6, Tourism Marketing District Business, dealing with waivers, run out of business, and audit hiring. Millions of dollars bamboozled by the marketing business to lure people here on tourism to get killed. If you're a tourist, stay away from Los Angeles. You'll get killed like the people in Venice.
Please stay on subject.
And then on item number 7, $135 million fucking dollars going where? To CD 12 for what? Because you had to add 30 million to the formula of 105? You don't have enough bad business going on? Well, let me remind you about bad business. It stands for EIFD. No, it stands for EIFD. Economic idiots failing the districts that they represent in CD 12 And in my closing rebuttal to you, Mr. Big Ears, stay out of the county supervisor business. Vote no for Mitch Englander. Vote no for the elf. Elf, elf, elf.
Thank you for your comments. That concludes the public comment on consent items 2, 3, 6, and 7. Without objection, those matters will be approved. Okay, item 1, Madam Clerk.
Item number 1 is a motion Price Krikorian relative to an instruction to the Economic and Workforce Development Department with the assistance of the Chief Legislative Analyst to report on the general strategy for creating enhanced infrastructure financing districts, and for the CAO to report on administrative costs associated with establishing EIFDs.
Okay, enhanced infrastructure financing districts were created by the legislature. Some hope that it will be a new tool or another tool in the toolbox. I certainly share that hope and desire. We know that already CD 11 and 13 have expressed interest, and we've asked the General Manager Perry of EWDD to give us an update on where we are with this legislation and how we can make it work for us here in the city of Los Angeles. Madam Executive Director.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Jan Perry, General Manager, Economic and Workforce Development Department. I'm here to speak to you on behalf of the department, and as far as the legislation is concerned, we continue to monitor through the Chief Legislative Analyst's Office. As you already know, that in January 2015, the state chaptered legislation creating this new tool to finance a variety of projects, facility, infrastructure, and development, and they're known as Enhanced Infrastructure Finance Districts, or EIFDs. Now, January 12, 2015, our department, along with the CLA's office, provided an oral report and a bill summary to the Arts, Parks, Health, Aging, and River community on EIFDs. And then again in February 27, 2015, the Council adopted an EWDD report with recommendations to move forward on planning and analysis for one or more river revitalization EIFDs along the Los Angeles 32-mile stretch of the LA River as an opportunity to test the bandwidth and the flexibility of an EIFD as an investment tool. Over the past few months, the department has identified funding and created a scope of work for consultant services to assist in analyzing various scenarios for the size, the scope, and financing structure of what may be one of a series of river-related EIFDs. This week, our staff will be interviewing the highest-ranking consultant teams solicited from our CAO pre-qualified list of economic development consultants, and they expect to enter into a contract early September to begin the work of getting a resolution of intention for potential river and river-adjacent EIFDs. Our report from 2015 to Council also detailed the steps necessary for adopting an EIFD and identified issues that would need to be addressed generally or in each EIFD adoption process, including governance structure, early funding for planning, potential general fund impacts, and administration concepts. The framework for the adoption was laid out in this report, but the department also proposed formalizing the framework and creating an EIFD establishment policy. Now, February 15, the Atkins bill was introduced, and I'm sure you're familiar with that. I don't need to go into that. But what it did is ceded the role of developing, analyzing, and adopting the infrastructure plan to the Public Finance Authority after a city, in our case, adopts a resolution of intention. It also provided clarifying language on relocation and replacement housing requirements. Although that has not been adopted, we will continue to monitor through the CLA's office, as any of those changes will likely influence any of our city-adopted framework and obviously have cost implications. So in addition to the motion that you have before you today, we also wanted to respond to the other EIFD-related motions including Council File 1349-S1, Bonin and Buscaino, that asked our department to look at the feasibility of utilizing an EIFD to fund economic development incentives in Venice, and report with a policy on establishing EIFDs in the city of Los Angeles, and to work with interested council offices to identify potential EIFD opportunities in their districts. So we will continue to coordinate with the CAO, city attorney, and the CLA, particularly the CAO's office, on potential administrative costs and fiscal impacts, and we expect to have a comprehensive report back to council in September with detailed recommendations on the city's approach to adopting EIFDs. And one other thought I'd like to offer, if you think it would be helpful, is charrette or a workshop for council staffs and any staffs that might be interested on the process for forming an EIFD, discussing the governance structure, cost implications, so that people have some education in advance. And
One requirement we're told is that there has to be some kind of county involvement. Have we had any preliminary conversations with the Board of Supervisors?
Not yet. No, we have not approached that yet. And of course, obviously, there is overlap, and obviously, we would face similar issues to those that we faced in redevelopment and the use of property tax revenue and taking a portion thereof and reinvesting it back into an area defined however that's defined. So they would obviously have to be at the table and a partner in this. And any other governmental interests, I would assume that in some cases, well, obviously LAUSD, in some cases it may even be a community college, water replenishment, maybe MWD, DWP. We're going to have a lot of people at the table.
Yeah, okay. Members, any other questions, comments? Okay, we're going to take, thank you, Madam GM. We're going to take some cards on this issue. Mr. Herman, Mr. Vargas, and Wayne.
So as we all know that Ms. Perry used to sit on the council board before, and there was very lengthy discussions regarding the CRLA under Zuma. And he brought up very good points about the abuse, waste, and fraud created by the CRLA. I'm very surprised that the action of Ms. Perry today is somewhat sympathetic, but I believe that many constituents are unaware of that.
Yeah.
We need to dissolve this mission of the CRLA completely in order to preserve what's left to create what Ms. Perry brought out for housing, elderly, the community, remember? This is all about the community.
Chairman, they're not on topic.
Stay on topic, please.
Oh, I'm sorry. And what number are we on again?
Your time is ticking away, sir. Please.
No, I'm asking, what number are we on?
Number 1.
Oh, 1, okay, thank you. So again, regarding property or Prop 218 tax, say no. No, no, not more fees, not more taxation. Jan Perry. Gotcha.
Okay.
Item 1, price, Gregorian, relative to the economic and workforce. And this is a Prop 218 scam, because what it does is allow Paul Krikorian to raise more taxes on a simple fucking majority vote. Because you don't call it a fucking tax.
Please stay on the subject. We're going to ask you to go outside.
It's a tax that requires a 2/3 vote, but when you call it a fee, it only has to need a majority. Please vote no.
All right, thank you for your comment.
Okay, so, just briefly, the idea here is basically to consolidate what you can in order to restore what you want. In other words, you are on yourself as much as possible to construct your city, but without the assistance of, the federal government in a sense. I take issue with this because I think if you're going to upgrade, and this is what I would suggest, that this should happen, you should actually be thinking about the future. The transit corridors or the LA River, whatever you want to call it, what we do need is an upgrade of everything. Speed trains is necessary, desalination.
Thank you. Okay, we've been joined by our members, Bill Cedillo and Nuri Martinez. Welcome, one and all. Members, again, any other comments on this item? Okay, see, we will adopt the motion as presented. Okay, let me just say before we go on, we are excited about the prospects of the Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District. We know they are complicated, but I think they can be a tool, and so we're excited that the department is working not only with other city departments, but other municipalities, other jurisdictions, because it is going to require that kind of collaboration up and down. So we appreciate the efforts. We're excited about the prospects, and we look forward to the updated report. Okay, in the next several items, 4, 5, and 6, we've been focusing on issues associated with workers, improving the minimum wage. We've been accused of supporting big businesses with programs and policies. The next several items are focusing on small businesses, focusing on entrepreneurs, and how we can be more intentional, providing opportunities, providing access, opening doors, so that small businesses get a piece of our economic bonanza. So with that, we will go to item. Okay, we're going to take up items 4 and 5 together. Madam Clerk, would you read those, please?
Item number 4 is a motion price Krikorian relative to a review of the City of San Francisco's local business enterprise and non-discrimination in contracting ordinance and the feasibility of incorporating any of its provisions into the city's local business preference program, including the San Francisco's ordinance's sheltered marketplace provisions. Item number 5 is a motion Krikorian Buscaino and Chief Legislative Analyst to report relative to a review of the local business preference program and recommendations for changes to more effectively target local businesses and ensure cost effectiveness of the program.
Okay, we got 2 cards on each of these items, one from Herman, the other from Wayne. You each are going to have a minute each on each item, total of 2 minutes only.
Ethology with classification of businesses from the service provided by the Krikorian for non-discrimination of an ordinance of feasibility in cooperating with the businesses for local reference of a program. What does all this shit mean? I don't know. But it's very little information regarding the sheltered marketplace provisions. It's not enough time to really submit a impact statement. You forgot to do a non-submitted community impact statement. How dare you, Paul Krikorian? You see, you little swindler, schemer. Now I'm going to go on to item 5 because I'm rounding down my time. Plenty of time to do the motion for Krikorian. So the chief analyst under this environmental impact fiasco is that he's targeting local businesses to ensure cost effectiveness. There's no such thing as cost effectiveness. You have to spend in order to create. You have to build on what you create to establish more taxes. Fundamental, Mr. Budget Man. So, again, this motion by Krikorian and Joe Blow Buscaino, which was a continuance from January 27th. That's a very specific day I can remember. But who gives a heck? It's not my business. The chief analyst said that relative to the review, another community impact statement non-submitted. Do your job, Paul Krikorian. Be more specific and delegate your time wise.
Okay, next speaker, please.
Yes, I see item 4, the moving parties are, again, ICE, and of course, the economic king of destruction, CD2, Paul Krikorian, relative to reviewing, this is good. You want to emulate San Francisco's local business enterprise, where the black population has fallen 39% in 10 years because there are no fucking jobs in San Francisco for people. So of course you want to emulate what San Francisco does for local business, because they fuck local business. The only business in San Francisco that succeeds is major business.
Please stay on this.
It's about the San Francisco business enterprise. But okay, we have babies over there, so we'll talk like children.
Relative to review the City of San Francisco's local business enterprise and non-discrimination. We don't want to discriminate, even though San Francisco has a black population of less than 6.7%, and in 1970 the population of black people in San Francisco was 19.4%. Do the math. Now we get to item 5. January 27, 2015, I was here. None of you were here, but I was fucking here, and I remember from the Budget and Finance Committee, no community impact statement was received. I've been waiting since January 27, 2015 to look online for the goddamn community impact statement for item 5. You don't even give me the impact statement. So please, Nuri, Cedillo, Harris Dawson, vote no on this scheme.
Thank you. That closes the public comment. The item, the sheltered marketplace item, is an idea from neighboring jurisdiction. We want to see again how we can take advantage of those tools and techniques that have been successful, been implemented in other jurisdictions. The sheltered marketplace program in San Francisco certainly has some interest, and let's ask the Bureau of Contract Administration up to the table to give us an overview on what you found out and what's possible to implement here in the city of Los Angeles regarding sheltered markets.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. John Reamer, General Manager of the Bureau of Contract Administration, committee members. It's a pleasure to be here this afternoon. Items 4 and 5, they do go hand in hand. What we, in response to your motion, did was explore San Francisco's efforts to provide opportunity for businesses in their region. Clearly, their focus is local. This city made that move several years ago. Councilmember Krikorian led that effort to make sure that we focused on local businesses, and we get the fact that local for our discussion would be both city and county based on our current charter. But with that said, they have two areas, they being San Francisco, that they appear to focus on. One is to provide opportunities for prime bidders, and they give a discount for bids based on a size standard. We do something very similar. The one thing that they have that we don't have in place is the sheltered market piece that you spoke to. It's being explored in some of the...
Let's describe that in some detail for members.
The effort is to identify opportunities for small and micro businesses. And again, small, micro, this is based on a size standard, and that will vary. For San Francisco, in public works construction, a small is $20 million, gross receipts. Micro is $10 million. They have specialty construction, and they have goods and materials, things that we would purchase through our general services department. So they have three categories that they identify for their contracting efforts. And the small size standards vary depending on the type of work. For the city of Los Angeles, ours is a little different. Ours is 14 million currently, and what we did was we aligned our size standard for small businesses based on that identified by the state of California. We don't have a micro, so to speak. We have an emerging business, which is 3.5 million. What we don't have is we don't have a pool set aside that specifically targets our emerging or micro businesses where they can compete and act as primes. So what we'd like
They would compete amongst themselves, you're saying?
Amongst themselves. What we would like to do is work with our Office of the City Attorney to explore how we can, if it's possible, to implement something similar to what is taking place in San Francisco. Their local business efforts appear to be similar to ours. Again, size standards are differing a bit. And again, with the two motions that were put forward, both 4 and 5, and we are working with the CLA to respond to item 5. Still getting information from various departments so that we can give clear direction. But from what I understand, and I don't want to speak out of turn, there is a clear appreciation for reaching out to local businesses. This motion in and of itself identifies a need to create a pool, if you will, for micro businesses that does not exist on a large scale. The city currently has a small local business preference, but that exists for contracts under $100,000. For San Francisco, they move as high as $400,000 for contract opportunities. So that gives us a model to see what we can do to mirror what they're having as successful in their region.
I have a couple of questions.
Yes.
Is there, if we do choose to possibly go in this direction of the sheltered market model, is there a way to create a category for women-owned or certified businesses? A category?
Not
so that, so if, for example, if the notion is that small businesses get to compete with each other, why not have a similar category for women-owned businesses to do the same?
Proposition 209 precludes governmental entities from being able to target contract dollars to businesses using a category of either race or gender. The notion, and I'm switching just a little bit in the discussion, of focusing on small, I would argue, has been to say many of your small businesses are minority and women-owned businesses. Not all, but many of them are. How can we find a number to define the small business that would encapsulate an environment that would increase the number of women and minority-owned businesses? Clearly, the numbers don't reflect the fabric of our city. We certainly need to, and the motion in itself speaks to wanting to do more to be more inclusive and to provide that opportunity. And so it's dialing in, and I want to believe that the local business part of this motion is going to speak to that. Dialing in a number that will help us be more effective in utilizing our contracting dollars in a way that we are more inclusive.
Yeah, I understand that, but I also want to create opportunities to specifically for women-owned businesses in our city to be able to compete with each other and compete at this level. So I actually want to go a step further and ask the city attorney to see what we're precluded to do or not do, because I'd like for us to, if there is an opportunity to explore this and create a category within this shared market model, I'd like for us to explore that possibility. The other thing I wanted to ask you, have you looked at the Portland model? I believe they also have a sheltered market model as well. I don't know if we can benefit from learning what they're doing
We've
and perhaps
reviewed it.
strengthening our efforts here in Los Angeles.
We've reviewed it, but we will look at it in more detail. Most certainly we can do that.
Thank you. And we will ask the city attorney to give us a ruling on the women-owned, how we can do that.
What we can and cannot do
I
under
agree.
209.
I agree.
The one thing that we did notice that San Francisco did was attempt to bring about consistency amongst the entities with major contract dollars. And I would ask that we do the same here inside of the city. And we've been moving in that direction, something that would allow the council control departments, along with the proprietaries, to be more on the same page. We get the fact that the contracting environments will be somewhat different, and that more than likely speaks to why you have the various size standards in San Francisco. But right now we have a multitude of different certifications, if you will, and size standards. Coming up with something that's more consistent. It not only would it be good for the marketplace, but it would make it a lot easier for administration purposes amongst the city departments.
Right, and finding some way to streamline that certification process would also, consolidate it would also be helpful. Any other questions? Paul?
Thank you. In terms of preference for women-owned business, although to the extent that we're precluded in giving actual bid preference based on race or gender or other factors, there's nothing precluding us from doing targeted outreach, from facilitating participation in a variety of ways, is there?
No, there absolutely is nothing that precludes us from making sure that, and if I were to put in a plug for our business assistance virtual network that the city has, that we sometimes refer to as our electronic marketplace, a transparent environment that allows us to see prime contractors reach out to not just women-owned business or minority-owned business, but all businesses. We focus in the sense that our outreach efforts are saying you must reach out to all businesses, both women, minority, other business enterprises, and when we don't see evidence of that, then that creates an environment where your approach has been deemed non-responsive to what we've asked for. So you are absolutely correct, Councilmember. I believe that's where Councilmember Martinez was going as well. Are we making sure that there is a concerted, strong, consistent effort to outreach to those businesses that clearly are underrepresented? And yes, that mechanism in place, we want to strengthen it to make sure that, again, it's consistent amongst all the departments in the city, but we are doing that, and certainly we can do better.
So in terms of the definition of local business, San Francisco is differently situated because they are both a city and a county.
Yes.
And I know there's been a lot of concern that ours is county-based, our definition. In my view, the economic impact within the county still has broad economic benefit within the city because many of our citizens work outside of Los Angeles. Many people outside of Los Angeles work in businesses within the city. So we're all part of a single economy. The city budget may be impacted a little bit because we don't get the same degree of sales tax revenue and business tax revenue and otherwise, but that's a separate issue from its economic impact. That being said, what other differences are there or similarities in how San Francisco defines a local business compared to our ordinance? Because the other concern that I have that I'd like to address in our ordinance is that it encompasses too many large national businesses which have somewhat minimal Los Angeles footprint. They have a minimum number of employees and so on, but it's really not what we were looking to do. In retrospect, I will admit, it's not what we were looking to do in focusing on primarily Los Angeles-based businesses. So does San Francisco do a better job of that than we do? Is it differently defined in some?
I wouldn't say they do a better job. Their preference is a little different than ours, but at the end of the day, it sums up to be close. Theirs is a 10%, but they have a $10 million cap. Ours is an 8%. Preference, but we have a $1 million cap with respect to dollars expended. As far as identifying their specific definition of local, I don't have that before me right now, but I certainly can get that for you.
Yeah, and we're going to come back for further discussion on number 5 anyway. So as part of that discussion, I'd appreciate.
But I do hear and see your point. One of the concerns that we've faced, the notion of, if you will, virtual businesses, those businesses that they will take up an address, but they provide no commercially useful function. They're serving more as a broker, and it's created some challenges for some of our larger departments that we're examining to see how we can make sure that this is indeed a local business that is indeed providing job opportunities, because that's ultimately what from my hearing, the council was concerned about not just providing opportunities for the businesses that are local, but those local businesses are going to provide job opportunities for local constituents. So when we started running into that, it did create a concern for us. We are reviewing the ordinance as it stands, hesitating to wait until the CLA report comes out, and then all at once make some corrections that we believe will strengthen and bolster our efforts.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Questions?
Question. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Mr. Reamer, and this may not pertain to this specific set of policies, but it's a general question about contracting where bids are a factor. Who bids lower or higher matters. Has there been any exploration of the idea of giving local businesses credits for encumbrances that they have by virtue of being in the city of Los Angeles or the county? So, for instance, I have Measure R if I'm in LA County. I don't have it if I'm in Ventura County. Mm-hmm. And I really don't have it if I'm in Arizona. Mm-hmm. And so is there any evening out or any calculation of what burdens, financial burdens that a business may have when they're placing a bid with the city versus someone from another jurisdiction?
No, currently, to my knowledge, and my experts are behind me, and they'll hopefully save me if I drift off into deep waters. The attempt to reconcile the notion that, be it headquartered in Los Angeles or Los Angeles County, what could potentially come with that might be higher costs, and I'm not saying that's necessarily the case, right, would be the preference that we give in and of itself, be it for a construction or commodities where that is predicated on lowest responsible bidder, or in our personal services where there's a proposal that's submitted and points are used to establish whether or not an award will be given. That preference, in this case 8%, was set at that to attempt to offset whatever challenges, if you will, would exist. They're none other than that. We don't have any formulas that we utilize to say if you're headquartered in Ventura or you're headquartered in LA, then you'll get a different type. We just go with the straight 8% based on our certifying that you are a local business given the criteria that we have in our ordinance. Again, that's something that we can explore, and what we'll do is we'll take a look and see whether or not San Francisco takes that into consideration as well. From what I've seen, theirs is fairly close to where we are. Again, just numbers are a little different based on their footprint, and they're seeing County 1 and the same. Other than that, it seems to be fairly identical, but we will certainly explore that.
Excellent. And it's our understanding that San Diego has a good model in this regard as well.
We'll take a look.
Any other comments, members? Again, we just all, I think, recognize how important it is that we help to support, cultivate our local businesses, small businesses, and using all the tools that we have available to do that. The economic engine that the city has, of course, is tremendous. And so to the extent we can make sure that at least businesses have an opportunity, I think that's all we want to do. Make sure they have an opportunity to have access and a chance to provide goods and services. So, members, without any objection, we're going to amend the motion to add a request that the city attorney undertake a review of the Small Business Enterprise Program and efforts conducted in the city's proprietary departments to determine the feasibility of implementing a comparable program in council-controlled districts. This is regarding the sheltered marketplace approach.
And that's also to include looking at Portland and the San Diego model and exploring a category for women?
Correct.
Sure.
Yes. Okay. That's for item 4. Without objection? Okay. That will be the order. For item 5, we've had some. There was some reference to it. I don't know if the CLA wants to come forward. Would you give us a status report on the local preference motions that you are considering as well?
Good afternoon, honorable members of the Economic Development Committee. Gabriel Salazar from the CLA office. And yes, we've started our report compiling data from coordinating with BCA and other state departments to obtain information in terms of the participation levels in the local business preference, kind of seeing how many local business enterprise get the contracts, looking at their amounts, evaluating the participation rate, and then kind of also looking at different areas for improvement of the program, looking at challenges and opportunities to make modifications to it. We've also done some preliminary research on the 8%. I think there was discussion previously about the local definition, so we work with city attorney on that. So when we return with the report, we'll include information on that aspect as well.
Good. Thank you. Okay, any questions? Okay, we're going to ask that we'll continue this for 60 days. Also, there was some reference made, I know, to some other jurisdictions. Also, Metro said to have a model that has been very effective for small businesses, local businesses, and so if you could include that in your review as well. But members, without objection, we'll continue this item for 60 days and expect a report back. And again, appreciate the collaboration between BCA and CLA on it. Okay, we do have a last-minute card. Let me encourage folks, this is, the start of this process, and so if you have some thoughts or ideas, certainly raise them with the council offices. Contact Mr. Reamer directly. You're taking calls, aren't you, Mr. Reamer?
Of course.
Of course. And we know the CLA is also available for ideas and suggestions if there are any stakeholders. All right, we've got one card from Bernita. Why don't you come on up?
Thank you.
Bernita Reagan.
Yeah. 4 and 5. Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Bernita Reagan. I'm with Merriweather and Williams Insurance Services. We run the city's bond program. We're really pleased and happy to do so. We've been working a little bit with Public Works. We look forward to working with them more. Just a couple of things I wanted to point out. In terms of women, it is because there's a sheltered market that focuses on small businesses, it allows more women to get into the bidding pool. As Mr. Reamer said, it is prohibited by 209 to specifically target women. But what we find, and we run 6 programs throughout the state, what we find is that women are more represented in small businesses, and so there are more opportunities there, and then the small women business owners are only bidding against other small businesses, not just women, but only small businesses. So it is a way to provide some extra support and opportunity for women. The other thing I wanted to say about the local issue is that in San Francisco, and I provided Mr. Reamer with the actual legislation and the regulations for San Francisco, is in addition to small businesses within the city and county of San Francisco, the Public Utilities Commission, which runs the whole water system, the Hetch Hetchy water system, all the way up to Yosemite.
Is that the local Public Utilities Commission or the state?
It is local, the San Francisco Public Utilities Commission, which just undertook $7 billion water improvement program. They instituted a local designation that includes small businesses that go all the way up to Hetch Hetchy and beyond 70 miles outside of San Francisco. There's also in San Francisco's ordinance a designation for small businesses that looks at the state and the SBA local business standards or small business standards. And so they call those SBA local businesses, which are larger than the regular businesses. So we're very excited about working with your legislative analyst and Public Works and the city attorney's office to try to help strengthen the ordinance based on what we've seen.
Good, and the Bureau of Contract Administration also.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you for your
We are so excited as an agency that works with small businesses to see you take up these issues because they're very, very important, and it makes a big difference. In terms of community impact, small businesses getting work means more local jobs and more local workers. So we're really, really excited about what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for your testimony and for your support. Okay, well, that'll be the order for item 5. We will get a report back in 60 days. Item number 8. Clerk.
Item number 8 is a motion Fuentes Blumenfield relative to the Los Angeles Department of Water and Power in conjunction with the Economic and Workforce Development Department to report on the status of the Enterprise Empowerment Zone rate subsidy program and its impact on economic development and job creation in Los Angeles.
Okay, thank you. Again, another tool in the toolbox, DWP discounts. Some questions, concerns about the status of those discounts with the dissolution or the reconfiguration of enterprise zones, empowerment zones. So we've asked DWP to come forth, DWP and EWDP.
Good afternoon. This is George Chen, Rates Manager.
Yes.
I'm with Mudia and Tom.
Richard Tom, Assistant General Counsel at DWP.
Moody Emu, Economic Development Group.
Jan Perry, General Manager, Economic and Workforce Development Department.
Okay. The ordinance providing incentives for new expanded business in Los Angeles hinged upon state, federal enterprise zones. State, federal enterprise zones no longer exist. So LADWP has been unable to offer incentives tied to the zones. However, we have been working with Councilman Fuentes to design an incentive that might entice new business as well as remain within the confines of new laws. We do expect to have a plan to submit to our board the fourth quarter of this calendar year. So that's where we're at right now.
Okay. Any other testimony?
Do you want me? Yeah, I can.
Yes.
The overlap for us, or the thing that ties us together, is the former California Enterprise Zone program that was established in 1984, dissolved in July 2013. The city had 3 active enterprise zones. They were Hollywood, East Los Angeles, and the Harbor Gateway communities. They were for business expansion and to stimulate job creation and to reduce business costs. So where we overlap, EWDD and the Department of Water and Power, is on one of the incentives, one of the programs, which was the utility rate discounts. We also had a local incentive package, and again,
Did those programs go away, or they still exist in some form?
Well, we continued on with the voucher program a year after the program, the Enterprise Zone program, was terminated by the state in July 2013. So the overlap, again, was on electrical rate discounts. The proposed discount that the Department of Water and Power had provided was a 5-year discount starting at 35% and then declining 5% each year. It was considered to be, anecdotally at least, because at that time the department weren't keeping metrics because we didn't exist, but they were attractive to new businesses. So, that's gone now, and we've resolved and finished our vouchers. And
So there is no subsidy plan now, no rate subsidy program?
No, we don't have an agreed-upon program with the Department of Water and Power. They will have to go forward with that, and hopefully, obviously, we would be supportive of them targeting new businesses and high wattage users. And even with a temporary discount, that's better than nothing. Long-term revenue would be realized from that. It would be a net positive. I'll just put this out here for their consideration. They could obviously look at the enterprise zones and look at their original terms and configurations and their expiration dates, which go all the way to 2027. Although I do understand from the conversations that we have had with them that they're considering a replacement program, and a replacement program would broaden those parameters. But they have an internal process that they have to go through first, which includes going to the ratepayer advocate and their board of commissioners before they get back to us.
You want to respond on the question about the rates?
Yes, we're working and we are having
Subsidy programs?
Yes, we kind of within the new regulation and the laws, and we try to develop one that more encompasses the entire city. And we already proposed that. We have that proposal to the ratepayer advocates and also community getting feedback. So hopefully
Would it be
we will.
similar to the existing program, or this is going to be a total
It's a different
revamped
program. It's a revamp with the new law requirements, so that within the new law requirements, we develop the one that will meet the requirement. And the existing ones, if they sign, before the January 2015, they were still on the discount until it expires. So we have some customers, more than 100 customers, currently still on the discount program, but we cannot sign new customers to that discount rate right now. But we will have a new program to replace that.
So in the meantime, they're just kind of in limbo, or they get the old rate, or what happens to them?
Right now, we cannot sign anybody, new customer coming with a new discount, but we find other ways, looking for, energy efficiency, some other programs to help them to come to the city. Yes, we understand department has a role to, attract business to the city, and we like to have that option.
Okay. Members? Comments, questions?
So how long were the current incentives identified and developed, and are they working?
How long? We've been, it's probably close to 5-6 months we've been having meetings and internally and also with the stakeholders, and we have several meetings going on. And we have a proposal already developed in the new proposed ordinance, and we just passed to our ratepayer advocate to review. So it's there, but we still needing feedbacks and working with the community right now.
So we don't have any data to show whether, there's no evidence to show whether this is working or not yet?
Not yet.
Is there anything that prohibits us from offering these incentives citywide?
No, that's the new one's going to be citywide. There's no zones targeted.
Yeah, and the reason I ask is perhaps we can create two tiers. Perhaps, for basic incentives, we can go citywide, and for targeted areas, like some of the neighborhoods that I represent, we add additional or offer additional incentives. I don't know if you've given thought to maybe creating a two-tier incentives.
We will study this. We have this discussion, and we still not finalized yet. But yes, can look into that.
In addition to the rate subsidy program, what other programs are targeted to help small businesses from DWP? Any other initiatives that?
Mostly we provide energy efficiency solutions, how to save waters. We have many different programs, not specifically rates, discounts, but we have other programs to help the small business, direct installs, a lot of lighting, retrofit lightings, and a lot of other stuff that other groups doing in the department. So not, specific on the rate itself.
Mm-hmm. And then how about efforts? How about your contracting efforts? That you undertake to doing business with small businesses, local businesses. Any special initiatives in that area?
I'm not expert on that, but I probably defer to
anybody can talk on DWP's contracting efforts.
I'm aware of Gwen Williams is the leads that effort at the department. I do not know, am not familiar with the details of her efforts. I do know that is an area of her interest, but I don't know the details of the program for the department.
Well, we need to get some additional information.
Certainly, I will inform her of that.
And again, this is part of the challenge. The proprietaries sort of are doing their thing. The city-controlled, the council-controlled departments are doing their thing, and frequently the twain just don't meet. And lots of dollars are left on the table for small businesses, local businesses. Okay, members, any other questions, comments? Okay, we will adopt the motion as presented and look forward to your follow-up report.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, last item, Mr. Clerk.
Item 9 is an Economic and Workforce Development Department report in response to motion Huizar Cedillo relative to EWDD's efforts to create a citywide economic development plan, establish department economic development functions, and implement its role in the city's economic development strategy.
Madam General Manager, I think one thing that's been clear from the from the meeting today is that there are a number of initiatives, and certainly the council is interested in a number of initiatives to assist you, to work with you, collaborate as we create a better atmosphere for small businesses, local businesses in our city. We know EWDD has primary responsibility, and it's a lot on your plate. But we certainly want to again work in collaboration with you as we not only develop a strategy but really develop an implementation plan. It's going to see some results. So again, we're happy to have you with us today and give us an update on programs that EWDD currently has and how you envision moving the department forward to a policy of supporting local businesses, small businesses in our city.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. And since taking this position in mid-2013, the newly formed Department of Economic and Workforce Development Department has worked vigorously to seek funding and begin to set up an infrastructure and work on programs that will enable us to better help stimulate job growth, job retention, small businesses, and attract net new development. There are a number of stakeholders at the table, council included, the mayor, our department, and related departments. Significant elements of our citywide economic development strategy plan are done and ready for your consideration and require further action. And as I put this in context for you, we are very mindful that all actions that we take are attached to budgeting. Grant-funded department, we are, general fund, CDBG, and if you want to have an even deeper dive, again, we can do a separate session devoted completely to that. So to give it some context, we wanted to take a look at, want to share with you our look at what the city's spending is on economic development compared to other major metropolitan areas in the nation. The city of Los Angeles currently allocates about $1.8 million of its general fund to economic development. For fiscal year 2015-2016, that translates into 0.034% of the city's available general fund that is spent on economic development and investment in small business. In a review of other cities, locally, regionally, and nationally, and that includes San Francisco, New York, Chicago, Denver, Austin, and Houston, we found that others were spending on the average between 0.25% and 1.0% of their general fund budget on economic development activities.
Edward Lars, we came in where?
Okay, 0.034. Just let me give you this will make it easy. At the lower end of the spectrum, Los Angeles, that equates to $13.5 million a year for the city of Los Angeles. If we went to 1.0%, the city would be investing about $54 million a year. So we're not investing in a level that will bring about the economic revitalization and job growth seen as cities that would be our peers. So this is a place to begin this conversation on the record. But know, please, that we're very mindful of implementing a vision without resources is a vision that won't be implemented. So just to give you another snapshot, the Economic Development Department has, the Economic and Workforce Development Department has an Economic Development Division. It is currently staffed with 35 positions. 23 out of those 35 positions are filled. 12 are vacant. The positions currently allocated reflect the department's former functions, with an emphasis on clerical and lower-level project positions that were 100% funded to conduct business development and voucher processing for the city's now defunct enterprise zone programs. Now, as the department moves forward to be more aggressive in economic development and to provide services focused on economic development, obviously, we have to hire a higher level of classification of staff, specifically in the area of real estate lending, environmental analysis, construction, and economic analysis. A better understanding of the amount and the types of funds that will stream into the department will assist us in proposing a detailed staffing plan that anticipates growing this expertise. So the sooner we have consensus from the legislative side or the deliberative body on the city's commitment, the sooner we can return with a very strong revised staffing plan for your consideration. But no matter how we decide to pursue our economic goals, we have to set aside funds for staffing and administration. And that's always been the challenge, even when this was CDD, to make sure that we have enough to cover staffing and administration to build the capacity necessary to execute the vision. So just to give you, again, a little bit of a snapshot, CDBG as an example. For program year 41, the department has an allocation of $4.5 million in the Economic Development Fund. Of that $4.5 million, the Economic and Workforce Development Department has allocated $1.2 million for Tech Shop LA. That was approved by the City Council in June of 2015. That leaves $3.3 million for expenditures on other programs. Now, in May 2014, the department reported on its focus on the Economic Development Fund because we wanted to ramp up on lending to small businesses and incubators. We will come back to you in 30 days with a very detailed report on our proposed micro lending programs. Given the department's current pipeline of small business loans, we anticipate being able to commit the entire remaining allocation of CDBG funds before the end of program year 41. We're proposing a micro enterprise fund, a small business fund to be expended as micro loans, anywhere from $10,000 to $50,000, and a larger business growth loan program, $50,000 to $450,000, and also a social enterprise economic development fund or a seed fund for for things like Tech Shop LA.
And we see these programs coming online when?
Well, we have to come to some understanding about funding.
Oh, okay. These are just
okay.
wish lists.
None of this is free. Okay, but we're going to bring you the proposal, and then you're going to decide whether you want to spend the money on it. Okay. So as soon as you decide that, then we'll be rolling. Okay. So the other thing I wanted to just share with you some following points. We have a work plan. We transmitted in March 27, 2015, the city-wide economic development update describing the recommendations of two previous reports and requesting that those recommendations be adopted. Those reports were dated May 16th and April 7th, 2014, respectively. They referenced funding levels and staffing authorities and proposed to bring economic development efforts to scale in Los Angeles. Those reports provided an analysis of the city's economic indicators, current trends, structural constraints, and concluded that public investment was absolutely necessary to achieve our goals. The work plan was framed as follows: focused on market investments on small businesses and micro enterprises, innovation by supporting emerging markets and creating traction for new business models and ideas, propelling growth sectors and moving into underutilized communities, and capitalizing on culture, cultural diversity, and neighborhood development as a means to achieve revitalization, and creating a platform for transformation through infrastructure projects that focus on entire commercial districts or sectors. Our work plan is pragmatic and is intended to be scalable and is very measurable. It incorporates 5 categories, very straightforward. And since its creation in April 2013, the department has taken administrative actions with existing resources to restructure the Economic Development Division to match the areas of focus. And again, just to recap, their market investment, innovation, capital projects, economic strategy, and property development. That includes development of city-controlled properties for public benefit. Just stepping a little bit out of sequence here, just to let you know that we work in concert with the workforce development side, because of course all of this is driven to provide more jobs, more equity. And so in implementing our new work source system with 17 work sources and our jobsla.org, we have actually registered 45,000 net new residents through our program to date, and have provided employment services to 84,000 residents through our work source centers. This is data through May of 2015, so the number is obviously higher. And in the former Workforce Investment Act, which is now WIOA, we've enrolled 17,000 residents in the city through dislocated worker programs and increased services to veterans by about 400%. Worked to employ 13,000 young people through our youth source centers, 16 of them located in the city of Los Angeles. And just to give you a snapshot of why we do all we do, and that it overlaps or overlays each other very, very well. We also had to work out pre-existing portfolio projects that were already in the pipeline, deal with default issues to make sure that jobs and public benefits come out of these projects. Approximately 1,600 jobs are expected to be created from 9 loans. Just to give you a snapshot, we have many more loans, but I asked for a list just to give you an idea of the types of loans that we are working on. Long-standing projects such as Lancet Industrial Center in CD8, Las Villas Medical Offices, CD1, District Square in CD8, La Cienega Jefferson Towers in CD10, and Sylmar Apartments in CD7. Our policies have worked to make sure that we get repayment and compliance across the portfolio. We also have an active portfolio of over 20 sites in process for reuse. We are also working on a new process for expending excess CRA/LA bond proceeds and evaluating opportunities for creative financing, developing recommendations for CDBG funds, small business loan investments, and investing the CDBG money in economic development funds like Tech Shop LA, and also applying for project-specific and planning grants. You may have seen or read or heard about our new facade improvement program, which is already up and running. Our business source centers, we're going through a rebid on the RFP process, and you may have some questions on that. That is also pending for City Council review and approval. And we will continue to work collaboratively. Now, if you would like, I can go specifically to every single report that we filed and just give you a summary.
You can't, let me ask you a question, though. Just again, average business person walking into the office, your office or my office, notwithstanding the personnel challenges that you have and all the balls that you're adeptly juggling. What do you think the top 3 programs are that the department has to assist local small businesses?
So
how would you identify those programs?
So if a business person walks into our department, first of all, they would probably a business person would go to our business source centers first, because those are out in the field. And
I know, I'm just saying, just break down the programs, though.
Yeah, just make it easy for you. Lending, small business lending, micro lending. They may look for money because they're not qualified for conventional loans to, finance, to start up, to expand. So they would come to us for those
kinds of...
So
you're saying the loan programs certainly one
micro, accelerate, incubate, small to large. We also work in concert with other governmental agencies like FDIC, SBA, and basically you put it under the umbrella of access to capital. So a small business would want to see us for access to capital. They may also want to see us for employees. They may say, I'm starting up a new medical instruments business, and, we need people who are trained in that, and then we would work with our work source partners, 17 of them across the city, or our community colleges, and say, work with us, and we will make sure to feed those employees through the work source centers to get you employees who are on point, or if you're really busy, you can register online through jobsla.org, and we can help you find them that way. So it's access to capital, employees, and then also potential for location. Properties that are under our control for potential for development is another tool that we offer, not only to a small business person, but to people who want to start a business in the city, small and large.
Okay, great. Paul, any questions?
Yeah, a couple quick things. First, on that very last point, Ms. Perry, the use of city-owned assets for economic development purposes. We've talked about this for a long time. And for a very long time, we
didn't even seem to have a handle in the city on what assets we had that might be able to be utilized. So where do we stand now in terms of really strategically targeting whether it's real property or other assets that the city has that are either surplus or can be used in a joint way or otherwise utilized to maximize economic development? Where do we stand in that targeting process?
Well, a couple of things. One, we still have a rather fractious process because General Services still has its oversight and responsibility for the properties that were still were under their purview. Even prior to that, yes, we do have responsibility for former CRA properties, and we have a working group. We're working through that now to bring it forward to ultimately to the committee and to council to deliberate on how you want to move forward and putting those out either for consideration or for bid or just to entertain proposals and to see what you get. So that's the short answer. It would be a lot more efficient if we could do it all under one umbrella. There have been proposals in the past, but they were not acted on. I was going to bring that up. Thank you. And you could take a look at the CAO report dated August 19, 2014, relative to asset management and strategic planning and recommendation for evaluation of city properties for city use and economic development, because it would then enable us to put everything under one process.
Okay. You made a number of comments about sort of being able to do only as much as you have resources to do.
Right.
I caught your glance. Don't worry. It was not. I did not miss it. And when we're looking at this from a budgetary perspective, having the vision of specific projects to be funded is very helpful. To the extent that these are new projects that we're initiating based on best practices that have happened in other places. You mentioned a number of other places that are spending a lot more than we do. For me, it's not just the cost, obviously, that matters. It's the return on investment. And so if we can demonstrate that something is going to be cost neutral or better for the budget, needless to say, that's going to be a much easier thing to fund. But even if it isn't, we still want to see what, in some detail, to the extent that you can anticipate with any degree of precision, what can we expect the multiplier effect, what can we expect the economic impact to be, so that we can qualitatively compare one program against another and come up with it. So those are the sorts of things I'm going to be looking at when we're budgeting these things. And on the loan programs that you talked about, particularly the microloans, I'm assuming that you get a pot of money funded through the budget. And then after that, it's primarily a revolving fund that if your only real cost is going to be administration and the cost of default, right? And then,
Yes.
and then other than that, you have a pool of money that continues.
An assumption that it gets paid back.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
But this is a department that historically has been grant funded almost to 90%. And so, and the sources of revenue that we have to fund the department are restricted sources, and built in or inherent in that is always the administration and salaries. So that's why we have to be so careful.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman. One last point on that point. I recall, and I think this is like 3-4 years ago, was in the prior administration when we were talking about setting aside the $2.5 million and creating the nonprofit and so on for economic development. At that time, the discussion was if we put in general fund money into economic development, there's all this private money that's out there that's going to match it, or that's going to, it's going to be seed money to draw in more private money. Do you, as our current general manager in this administration, envision that we would still have that kind of a scenario, or was that yesterday's plan?
That's a tough question. I know from talking to my peers internally, most would like to have a consolidated process so that we could vet projects together and to do it on the record and to push them forward if they, should be pushed forward. It would make it more efficient, but for whatever reason, I don't know why, a consensus has not been able to be obtained as to how that would affect the private sector. I suspect you'd have to be very open to the voices that would be either as a participant or around the table. You're going to face that same issue if you decide to go with EIFDs, because they are governance structures. They're just governance entities subject to the same challenges and pressures that elected officials face. So, it's going to be a matter of who you want to put at the table and whether their voices of equal weight or not. But I think that if people saw opportunity, there's opportunity in leveraging with DWP. There's an opportunity. There is opportunity in consolidating the disposition of all of our properties together in a streamlined, unified approach on the record. There is opportunity for us to deal with the bond proceeds now coming back, and that part seems to be going pretty well, actually. We have a working group and now a committee, and then it'll move forward to this committee, and then ultimately you'll have a record to work with, so that should go pretty well. Yeah, there's still, I don't know if it's a sense of competition or who gets there first, but the bottom line is that there's plenty of work to go into this pipeline, and we are more than capable of doing it as long as we don't get forced into a deficit situation, which, as a manager, I cannot allow that to happen without warning you of the pros and the cons of the risks to our budget, so we can be realistic and give you what you say you need, not make false promises.
Great. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you, Mrs. Perry, for your comments and for your commitment, ongoing commitment. I know we have members of the EWDD family also in the House, and so we appreciate those combined efforts. Members, we're going to note and file this report and budget motion and instruct EWDD, CLA, and CAO to report back with recommendations to implement the economic development actions identified in the report. Instruct the CLA to report back on the use of boomerang funds for affordable housing and economic development purposes. We do have one card. Let's have Mr. Vargas up before we adjourn. Byron Ross, please say.
My comment is just simple. In looking at some of the writings, some of the recommendations, I noticed that I think the lady said something about vision. But the vision that I'm trying to envision here, which so far, you say certain things, but there really isn't a specific vision that people have. You mentioned certain things in the report, how you're going to do certain things, but a vision of the future, and I'm not sure how far people are thinking. I think the dilemma that I want to say is we are dealing with something grave here. I think we're missing a lot of discussion on what the future is. And I think China can be an exemplar of that.
Thank you for your comments. Any other items before us?
No, sir.
Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.